going to start by saying, if you think about something that is very interesting that is happening over the last several years, and I in all my travels, I have found this, there's a tremendous political crisis worldwide. Most of the major political parties in the world have lost the plot and they lost the business model. So if you look at the challenges, what happened in Brexit in UK, see the challenges in Turkey, the challenges in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in the US with the current elections. If you go down to France, you go to the Netherlands, you go to Austria. I was in Denmark just a few weeks ago. What's happening in Denmark? All of these countries are essentially under the same kind of pressure. And what is that? If you think about it, there's a digital divide in the world. We mentioned this, you mentioned about in 81. Just the borough of Manhattan spends more on ICT, on computing, than the entire sub-Saharan Africa. So you're creating this digital divide. You have inequality of the income, which is creating all the stress, the water resources, and all of it stems from one thing in the middle, which is urbanization. So I want to talk to you about the fact that in order to solve the challenges of the ecology, in order to solve the problems of water, we have to rethink how we are addressing urbanization. Today, as we speak, in this 1 hour, 10,000 people will leave a rural area and move into a city every hour of the day for the next 36 years. 10,000 people an hour a day means in order to sustain them, we have to create a London every month for the next 36 years just to keep up with that urbanization. And that is impossible in the way we are doing things today. So, to do that, we have to think in scale, and I would argue that India, as thinking about the third wave of the digital economy, should lead by looking at all the smart city efforts, all the smart villages effort, and say, we can create a new industry that solve for Indian problems and then create solutions and services companies that can solve it globally. And that creates jobs and economics. So in that, we are not going to do it doing the same thing. So we have to ask a different set of questions. What if you had an affordable digital infrastructure? Would we run cities the same way? So the question I would ask us all to think about and force everybody to think is saying, if you had unlimited computing, if you had unlimited storage, and if you had unlimited bandwidth, and if everything was connected to everything, would you do healthcare the same way? Would you do education the same way? Would you run the cities the same way? Would you live your life the same way? Because if you think about why people are leaving a rural area to go to an urban area, it's because of lack of urban services in the rural area, lack of education, jobs, and healthcare. So can we use digital technologies to move some of this into rural areas so they don't have to come into the cities? And today, if you look at just in the last 20, 25 years, look at the scale and the drop of the pricing to the fact that you can have an affordable infrastructure. But the message that I want to have for you here is that that's not the key story. The key story is that today there are more things connected to everything that can change the way we think about healthcare. And I got some examples. Today, 6 billion phones are sold in the world, but only 3 billion toothbrushes are sold in the world. So there are people with access to phones that don't have a toothbrush. And that's a dangerous combination when you don't have access to clean electricity, clean water, and healthcare. Now, the internet is also changing. We are moving from the data internet to a video-based internet. By 2019, 90%, over 90% of the internet will be completely video-based, which means healthcare is going to be very different than the way we think about it today. Education is going to be very different. And that's the area that we have to say, can we rethink all the things that have an impact on ecology, on energy consumption, on water consumption? Let's take doctors. Everything that we do, we think in terms of time and space. Let me go to the doctor. Let me go to work. Let me go to school. In fact, we even say, let's go Google this. So if you think in that context, why do you need to go to the doctor? Research shows that for 80% of the time that you go to visit a doctor for a typical case, the doctor himself or herself doesn't need to touch you. Somebody else needs to touch you. So if that's the case, why not digitize the beds? Why not digitize the instrumentation and rethink delivery of medical services into villages, into rural areas, and into cities? And there's a business around this. Today, there is a healthcare company in the US that has 1 million ICU patients being monitored out of India, in Chennai and elsewhere, because the beds are digitized. That changes the context. One other example I want to give you is cancer. Cancer is detected when you hit 100 million cells, about 6 to 7 years. But you can detect cancer at 50,000 cells, and you can cure cancer, except you don't know it's there. So the one in the middle is a pill that you swallow, which digitizes everything as it goes through your system and sends the information and monitors it using data analytics. In fact, the biggest trend in cancer research today is liquid biopsy. It's going to transform the entire oncology discipline. This is what is going to happen now. It's already here. But I also want to talk about something that's closer to my heart. I want to take one country, Tanzania. The whole country of Tanzania, the 47 million, does not have one pediatric surgeon, one pediatric pulmonologist, one pediatric radiologist. By connecting the hospitals in Tanzania to the hospitals in Bangalore, 2 professors returned from Yale have created a new business of transferring education and services to Tanzania, creating a platform that transforms healthcare in America. That's a global healthcare delivery mechanism. Let's take education. I just want to take 2 examples in education. Ghana has coffee plantations that services Hershey, Pennsylvania, and the Hershey Chocolate Company. I'll just take that as an example. Because of the time difference, when you digitize the schools on the cocoa plantation with the schools in Pennsylvania, the teacher is teaching the same kids in Ghana and in a white Pennsylvanian neighborhood, the same lessons, the same education, and they work on projects together for 15 years. I want you to think about it. At the end of 16 years, a boy or a girl in Pennsylvania does not look at an African child as a foreign child. And the child in Africa gets access to education about the same quality as someone in the US. We can think about digitizing and delivering services. On the other side, Korea spends $15 billion on English tutors. We have connected teachers, high school students, and college-going Korean Americans to teach the kids in Korea and generate new income in America and in London. That's the global industry that could not have existed a few years ago. I want to talk about garbage. We all know about garbage. I'll just take Bangalore, the place that I was living till about a month ago. There are 350 to 450,000 rag pickers in Bangalore, but 400,000 in Delhi. The average life expectancy of a rag picker is 39 years. 1/3 of their children will die at birth. And yet, you can do the kinds of things like I Got Garbage, which is using Aadhaar as a platform, use Kabadiwalas out of Chennai, connect the two, and you create an entirely new industry and create a new set of microservices. This creates job, and it changes the way garbage is treated. One more, which is water. We talked about water. 60% of the world's water is wasted through leakages. There is a startup out of Tel Aviv called Takadu that monitors and manages water systems in Singapore, Adelaide, Cairo, and other places. In other words, water systems can be managed globally. Similarly, that little thing that you see is an iPhone app that by crowdfunding and crowdsourcing, individuals can monitor the water quality rather than the government having to do that. These technologies exist. But to do that, we have to rethink the business model. And this is a huge business model. It's $3 trillion worldwide that is emerging. The next Infosys, the next Wipro can emerge in India if India says we are going to come up with new solutions, new products, new technologies that's going to solve problems in Coimbatore and in Raichur and the others, but also think globally. So to do that, I ask the question, do we have a new dawn or a false beginning? I just want to take one example of Thomas Edison. If he was born again and he came to my home in Florida, he would see this machine. That's what he invented, the sound machine. He would love it. He would know how to work it. But he would never understand what Ambika was listening to. He would never see the evolution. On the other hand, if I take him over to the utility company, this is the 1892 patent for the electric grid that he put in that created General Electric. And this is what it looks like today. It hasn't changed. So creating this urban services in India, make for India, whatever you put a construct on it, you need 5 things. And that is what we have to do collectively in a public-private partnership model. And those are visionary leadership to say we are going to transform the way healthcare is delivered, transform the way ecology is managed, and we're going to come up with a scaling model that solves our current problems, creates jobs, creates revenue streams, and creates a global economy. And that requires new ecosystems, new innovation, and new regulation. This is what we have to do to solve for some of these problems. While you work at it, we need to think at scale and create new businesses around it. Thank you.